Nobody wants to be a doormat. The problem me and my clients have faced is trying to be nice, but then people don't respect your boundaries. There's this belief that to be taken seriously, you got to be abrasive. And that belief comes from being in situations where you stated what your boundary was, but the other person didn't stop doing whatever it was, and you had to snap on them. But I've spent the last 3 years being able to stand on business without going back to that rah-rah, ready to fight girl that I hated, especially as I was trying to change things with my son. And in this conversation, I'm going to give you 5 things to help you hold your boundaries without going back to the version of you that you have no desire to be. Let's get something straight real quick. Respect is not built by being hard. It's built on consistent refusal to drop your standards to be more accommodating for other people. And you don't have to be aggressive to do that. Here are 5 things that are going to keep you from unleashing the beast while protecting yourself from being taken advantage of. Number 1, follow your plan regardless of the sensations in your body. Most people who struggle to keep their cool when enforcing boundaries don't do more than tell somebody what the boundary is. And when the other person doesn't listen, that fight or flight reflex kicks in. This is the part where you freak out or you back down, but you don't have to do that. Feminine authority is not about doing either of those things. In order for you to be a woman who gets what she wants, who gets the respect, who has the relationships she wants, you have to be able to regulate your responses to things regardless of the signals that your body is sending you, regardless of the automatic thoughts that are being triggered. You are not in danger just because you are activated. Your emotions are just information, and your feelings are how you're interpreting what's happening. So if somebody doesn't meet your standards for how you're going to allow yourself to be treated, you get to use all of that data to decide what your next move is. The second thing is decide ahead of time what you're going to do when your boundary gets crossed, because it's going to happen. So you need to be prepared. And making decisions from a highly emotional place usually leads to the things that we regret. If you already have a plan, it takes the emotion out of your decision in the moment. It's not personal, it's policy. Number 3, don't take responsibility for somebody else's processing. If you were kind while you were being firm, how the other person feels or whether they agree with where you draw your line is not your problem. Women have this tendency to feel bad when somebody else feels any sort of negative emotions in relation to something that we did. We're afraid that hurting people's feelings will prove that we are bad people. But that's a load of crap. There's so much that determines how somebody is going to respond to you. Their perspective, their knowledge, their experiences, their abilities to regulate, their abilities to comprehend things, their abilities to listen to what's being said without putting their own story stamp on things that are incorrect. And all of that is out of your control. So being consumed with how somebody else is going to receive what you tell them will drive you crazy. The 4th thing is recognizing your limit so that when you hit it, enforcing your boundary isn't a question. You can't know what all of your tipping points are. So I'm not going to say that every single limit is something you're going to be aware of. But there's always going to be situations where you do know. We're not talking about the stuff that you can't anticipate because it's a situation you've never been in. But based on the stuff that's happened in your life history, you know that certain things are going to bother you. I have a friend, and she has a hard boundary around being pointed at. And when our friendship was just developing in the very beginning stages, I pointed at her while talking about something, and she was visibly bothered. But she was not combative. She didn't get, to a point where she was yelling or anything like that. She just looked me dead in my eyes and said, "Don't point at me." And because I'm somebody who is not afraid to respect other people's boundaries, and I don't feel a need to try to convince them that the line is other than what it is for them, I didn't need a long explanation as to why it bothered her. And this made me think about Jesus casting out the demon in Luke chapter 4, verses 32 through 37. She spoke with conviction and power, just like Jesus did in that particular story. And she said the least amount of words she needed to get her point across. And because when we look at that part of scripture, Jesus is not over explaining. He is not overplaying his hand. He's just saying what it is. It's the perfect model for what we're supposed to do. The last thing is number 5, and it's know your standards for treatment so that you know when to activate your boundaries. Everybody talks about knowing what you value in relation to boundary setting. And that's because it's the foundation for developing boundaries. If you don't know what you value, you can't set boundaries around it. You have to know what's important to you. That's why one of the things that I do with my clients is a value finding exercise that I did with one of my coaches, because it shapes your entire life. It shapes your parenting. It shapes how you pick partners. If you are dating and out here in today's market, and you will invest your energy wisely and reduce your overwhelm because you know what's important to you. And when you're operating from a grounded space like that, it's a whole lot harder to rattle you. Women who own their authority are not so flappable because they know who they are and they know whose they are, so that they have a model that they can always go to follow. So they reach more goals, they enjoy their lives more, and they're excited to wake up every day. Who wants to spend their life being miserable or waking up thinking, man, I hope today sucks? No. So let's recap. The 5 things that you are going to start doing so that you're not becoming the version of yourself that you are trying to outgrow, that version of yourself that you look at in disgust and think, who is this? Are these things. Regardless of how you feel in your body, follow your plan. Decide ahead of time what you're going to do when your boundary gets crossed. Don't take responsibility for somebody else's emotional processing. Recognize what your limits are and be clear on your standards for treatment so that you know when you need to activate your boundaries. This is just one piece of the puzzle in unlocking your feminine authority. You can be fierce without the fiery behavior. When you do the things that we talked about today, you are going to feel safe being the person you actually want to be, because you finally have a way to protect yourself that doesn't require you to be somebody you have to apologize for later. And in our next conversation, we're going to tackle another piece of the puzzle. And that's how to be softer when you've spent your whole life being aggressive so that people take you seriously. Thanks for tuning in to Feminine Authority Formation, or Feminine AF. I'm Tanisha, the VVS Life Coach. And If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you know when new episodes are uploaded. And if you are listening to the audio podcast, please leave a review for the show. I do read those, and it gives me insight on where I can take us next. Until next time, may the Lord watch between me and thee while we are absent one from another.